chainers, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, the Blended Podcast, and founder of the Blended Pledge. And if you suffered through last week's episode with me, I just want to apologize. I am on the mend. I was very sick last week and had all sorts of coughing fits throughout the show. But of course, the show has to go on. So if you suffered through that with me last week, thank you so much. And I hope that you're back this week because we have a really cool show coming up for you. I've got Maria Prince joining me, and we're going to be talking all about de minimis, what you need to know, who it's going to affect, and it's really going to affect small business. And we're going to be talking about ESG, which I know is an important topic, but has been something that has kind of fallen off the hill a little bit over the last little bit. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about our show sponsor. So are you ready to find your community? Well, if you're struggling to find supply chain community of like-minded professionals where you can level up, network, learn about best practices from experts in supply chain, professional development, and marketing, look no further. Well, we created the Secret Society of Supply Chain. So if you head over to secretsocietyofsupplychain.com, sign up for our newsletter. We are revamping our Women in Supply Chain membership community, and I cannot wait to share with you the details. We're also revamping the creative room and providing so much more education. And then the supply chainers is going to be some fun networking for all of you in supply chain. So go and sign up for the newsletter. We're going to be revamping that program and having that information out to you early 2025. All right, let's get to what is happening at Let's Talk Supply Chain. So we have a brand new episode with Parabola. Now they joined me this week to talk a lot about Excel, leaving Excel behind, and how Parabola can help you with that. And if you haven't checked out this episode, you definitely want to go and find out who they are. When we released this episode on our social media, they had a ton of clients in the comments coming and commenting about how much Parabola has helped change their operations and helped change them with the technology. And so I would highly recommend that you go and check out episode 435. They've got a lot of fans. They've got a lot of people using their system. And so I'd love to sort of tell you a little bit more about their founder journey, who they are, and how they can help you. And we do that in that particular episode. Next, live tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern is Christine Barnhart of Nulogy and her special guest, Tom Campbell, co-founder and chief strategy officer at Capacity LLC. They're talking about powering value-added logistics in today's market for supply chain unfiltered. Now, if you cannot join us live, click the attend button. We will send you the recording. You're not going to want to miss this one. So make sure you click that attend button. Next, I also go live with MVK for the second episode of On the Margins. And we're talking about where the margins matter with Rendy Miller. Now, Rendy Miller is a friend of mine. We've been live a bunch of times, and we are going to have a great time in this episode talking about this particular topic. So again, click the attend button. If you can't attend live, we will send you the recording. And last but not least, we have our brand new live show with PackSave called Frostbites. Now we know that cold chain is one of the hot topics in supply chain these days. And they are going live on Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern to kick off their show. And they're going to be talking about cold chain insights and fresh solutions. So click the attend button. We'll send you the recording, but we hope that you attend this one live, give them some support, and show them how much love you have for cold chain, because I know you're out there. And on Thursday, I'm also going live. Well, not really live. This is a webinar. So you'll have to register for this one, but I am hosting this discussion with Chad, Kevin, Chris, and Shannon, and we're talking about coordinated asset management. Now, this is an interesting story because we have 3 technology providers who have come together in collaboration to find a solution for givens. And we're going to be talking about how they made that work, how the collaboration has been so successful. So click the link, register for this event, because this is going to be a pretty pretty fascinating discussion. What else do we have? In-person events coming up. Of course, Manifest, February 10th through 12th. I am going to be there and hope to see all of you there as well. And then we've got Home Delivery World, May 21st through 22nd. I'm talking about attending a lot of events in 2025. So stay tuned because there's going to be a lot more on this page. All right, last but not least, last week I was at the Woman in Supply Chain Forum put on by Supply and Demand Chain, Marina and Jason. And Let's Talk Supply Chain, Blended, Pledge were the presenting sponsors. We had a great time. I recorded some Woman in Supply Chain episodes on site, and it was great to see all the women, recognize them, celebrate them, and it was a really great time. So just wanted to share that with you. All right, now it is time. I knew it. I was going to go over my time limit that I told Maria that I was not going to go over. All right, let's bring Maria up on the stage. Maria, how are you? Welcome to the
I'm great.
Yes,
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation. I'm excited to be here with you.
so excited to have you. Now, it's been a while since you and I have really caught up and had a chance to talk about things. So I was really excited when you reached out and said, "Hey, I want to come talk about ESG." And I was like, "Let's do it." So, for anybody who doesn't know you, why don't you tell everybody who you are and what you do?
So, Maria Prince, I am the Global ESG and Supply Chain Risk Leader for DuPont in the procurement department. Uh, my current role is basically I am responsible for integrating sustainability into the global supply chain. I drive supplier diversity as well as global procurement strategies to make sure that we're aligned with our ESG goals as a company. I also collaborate with the organization on understanding what our risks are, mitigating those risks to make sure we don't have supply chain disruptions.
That is a big job. How do you do it,
Yes, it
Maria?
is. I don't get much sleep actually.
I don't like to hear that. Self-care is the first form of love. We need to make sure you're taking care of yourself, right?
Exactly. Everybody should. But as you know, those of us in supply chain, we're on the ground, we're the line of action, so we don't always get as much sleep as we like to.
I know. I've actually been talking to a lot of supply chain leaders, chief supply chain officers, senior VPs, and it's kind of been the same thing across the board is the fact that there's like meeting after meeting every day, not a lot of time to get the work done, not a lot of time to really strategize and innovate, and there's just a lot going on. There's a lot to do,
Yeah.
there's a lot to think about for a lot of senior supply chain leaders. So anyways, it seems to be a common theme. All right. Well, hopefully everybody's taking the rest that they need. All right, let's get to the poll of the week. So, how we ask everybody a question every single Wednesday morning
Mhm.
across our Let's Talk Supply Chain LinkedIn and Instagram. So, this question, how should supply chains adapt to flood disruptions in Europe? Now, 56% of you, now we had over 100 votes on this one. If you're in the audience and you're watching and you have not commented on this, maybe go on there and vote for what you think is the answer, or you can put it in the comments so that we can talk about it on the show. But 56% of you said diversify sourcing, 19% of you said strengthen local networks, 18% of you said invest in infrastructure, and 7% of you said increase inventory levels. What do you think as a supply chain leader? One of the things that you're looking at is risk, right? This
Yep.
is a disruption. This is a risk to your supply chain. How do you think these answers, like how do you think this shook out?
It's exactly what I would expect. Whenever you have disruptions or you're in areas that are high risk, it's always helpful to diversify. Always what I like to call have a plan B. You also have to make sure that when it does happen, because you don't always know that it's going to happen where you are, to make sure that you have a risk mitigation strategy in place, meaning, have suppliers ready to go if something happens with your inventory or with your production or with your manufacturing. Um, the least likely one I think would be the inventory levels because you don't know when you need to increase those, and all of us like to keep our inventory levels as low as possible.
Mhm.
So understand the response, but a little bit harder to do, especially when everyone's watching their budgets and their inventory in their sites. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit harder to do.
Yeah, no, that's so true because I was recently at the Gain Summit and a lot of the supply chain leaders that I spoke to there, they were talking about how they were tasked with reducing inventory levels to help with that bottom line and help with the cash flow. And that's one of the things that they were able to do with technology. And so there is a lot of pressure for supply chain
Mhm.
leaders, senior supply chain leaders to keep those inventory levels low, helping with cash flow. Because remember, if you've got that inventory, it's a lot of capital that's just sort of
Yeah.
sitting there. And a lot of, organizations and investors and boards really don't like to see that. So you agree with that?
I do agree with that, and
All right.
that's what we've been seeing at my company is we've been laser focused on making sure our cash flow is positive. We've been looking at our terms and conditions, and we do report on a monthly basis where we are in inventory and cash flow. So I
On a
agree with that
monthly.
100%.
Wow, monthly basis. That's a lot of work. Now, I want to say hi to Charlotte and Eric over on my personal LinkedIn. Thanks so much for commenting and being with us today. Now, if anybody has any questions, comments, we'd love to hear from you. Put it in the comments. We'll definitely give you a shout out. We want to know where you're tuning in from. Before we get to our first article, this is the time of the show where I like to ask about a market update, right?
Mm.
Everybody is working hybrid. They're not always with their peers. And some people feel alone, right, in some of the disruptions and things that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So this is the time where I sort of ask you for a market update. What are you seeing? What are you feeling? What are you hearing about? What's keeping you up at night? So tell us all about that, Maria.
Well, given the current climate, I think the topic that we're most talking about in supply chain is tariffs.
Mm,
Tariffs have been going up over the years. We've been having targeted tariffs with certain countries, and those of us in supply chain know that the country that we all most do business with, and we've been diversifying that over time, is China. And so we're really concerned about where that's going to land. So we're keeping an
mhm,
eye on it, making sure that we're mitigating our risk, diversifying our sourcing strategies to combat it. We're also being big advocates, and I think everyone should advocate in your trade organizations, with your PR folks, with your government affairs people, because I think they need to understand the impact of those tariffs on the supply chain and for our
mhm.
customers. There are a number of other things going on, but if you were asking me what keeps us up at night, I would say right now it's the tariffs and where that's going to go.
Well, of course, because every time that changes, it really creates a lot of work for supply chain professionals, right? Because you have to really understand your origins and the materials and what it's going to affect. And then you're reporting that back to sort of the C suite with some solutions on, okay, well, we can look at potentially manufacturing in other places. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about in the next article.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's not so easy to swing that pendulum and just move manufacturing. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. So these are all things that you got to think about now, take into account, and then plan for kind of for the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, and then that on top of everything else that we have to deal with,
Yeah.
we want to keep costs down.
Mhm.
We want to make sure we have no disruptions, and then you throw in that into the mix, and it really creates complexity in the supply
Absolutely.
chain for everybody.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to our first article.
All right.
Now, this one is about de minimis. Now, if you don't know what de minimis is, it's an exempt shipment that's less than $800 in value, and they are exempt
Hmm.
from duties and taxes. So, if you've got a parcel that comes into the US that has a value of less than $800, you are not paying duties and taxes on it. And just to give you a little bit of context, because I'm in Canada, the de minimis in Canada is $40. So if you are
Oh my
shipping
gosh.
anything to anybody in Canada that and you put a value of more than $40, because this happens to me all the time, I am paying duties and taxes and customs entry on that. So just to be a little bit mindful for your friends to the north when you like to send them a present, put it as a gift. Anyways, for this particular article, we're talking about de minimis into the US and we're talking about fast fashion. We're talking about some of the larger retailers, as you can see right here. And what they're looking to do is because we have like the US has millions and millions and millions of packages that go through de minimis on, I think, even a daily basis. And they're looking to
Mhm.
raise the duties on this. Um, but I think what's going to end up happening, because they really want to be able to have a customs entry. So if a parcel comes into the US, there's not always a customs entry or an HS code classifying
Mhm.
the product that's coming in. And I think what's happening a lot is that they really want to understand the country of origin just to make sure that it's falling under those ESG compliance regulations, for forced labor and different things like that. They also want to know what the contents are. And so they're having a hard time reporting on all these parcels coming into the States. And so they're looking to raise duties on this. But I think what they don't quite realize with this is that it's going to impact more small business than it is these large retailers. So, Maria, I've got a few other comments on this, but before I
Okay.
get to that, I want to hear what your thoughts were on this article. What did you think?
Well, I thought it was a great article and it was very timely, given the ESG parameters, because fast fashion has always gotten the rap that it creates climate issues because once people wear it, they dispose of it, and where does it go? So how do you recycle that? So that's one aspect of fast fashion that I know from my work in retail, and others having to figure out what do we do with it once it's returned or people stop wearing it. But
Yep.
the thing that I wanted to focus on in this article was, I know what the US is trying to do, and I don't and I agree that we need to have a better handle on what's coming into our country. We need to know, a lot of illegal substances come through our borders this way because they can skirt the regulations. But I think we should take a balanced approach. I
Mm.
don't think we should just, say, oh, it's going to go from 800 to, I don't know, 1600. We should gradually, I'm sorry, down to 200,
Or
but we
even
should
40.
gradually.
Okay. Even 40
Well,
is
it used to be $5 when it first started. I don't know if you knew this, but when it first started, it was $5.
what?
And yes, it was $5
Wow.
and it's been going up ever since. And so I think if we're going to do it, let's keep it high enough that it doesn't that it offers a balance for small business.
Mhm.
And then let's put some things in place like allowing small business to use the CPAT process, bringing goods in.
Mhm.
So let them certify that they're not violators of this. They've proven that they're compliant, and give those small businesses, not, I don't know if you want to call it a path, but exempt them from
Mhm.
the adjustments in the regulation. Also, there's some things we can do from grants and subsidies to help small businesses manage all the administrative things that are going to come. Train them on how to use the HTC codes to make sure they're properly documenting their shipments so they're not paying more than they should.
Yeah.
Also, using AI and analytics as a government agency, we've been talking about this at the corporate level, but the government could also use this to make sure that they're efficiently monitoring the
Mhm.
documents and the information coming in so that they can target those folks that they're trying to keep from violating our trade laws and bringing things into the country that we don't want by doing that.
Mhm.
And then incentivize local manufacturing, tax credits. I know we've been doing some of that lately, but continue to do that because
Mhm.
that really works and it'll help small business. But I
Mhm.
guess, a balanced approach, if I had to give a comment after reading this, was I hope that we just don't go in with a here's the same for everybody, but we consider what happens to small business and
Yeah.
then maybe gradually make those adjustments down.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think those are really great insights because if we raise those duties, we not only do that, we ask for HS codes, which then requires more reporting, more documentation, a customs entry fee on top of
Yeah.
that. So it's not just the duties that go up, it's also the customs entry.
Yeah.
When we think about some of the large retailers, they can pivot a little bit easier. They've
Hmm.
already pivoted some of their manufacturing to Turkey, Mexico, Brazil, some
Yep.
in the US for print on demand, which I was surprised to see. But they can go from small parcel and sending them one at a time to shipping a full container load and paying one customs entry.
Right.
versus multiple. And so they actually it's actually going to be a wash for them. Whereas small
Yes.
business, it's really going to target them a lot more. And also, if we think about small businesses moving manufacturing, again, that's a big shift, right? That's something
Yep.
that's going to take some time that they're going to have to think about. So let's see where this goes, but hopefully, like you said, it could be a balanced approach. All right, let's get to our second article. And I wanted to, well,
Oh.
you brought this one to the table, moving
Uh,
beyond ESG. Now, this is something that you are doing on a daily basis. You're in it on a daily basis. I know that ESG and the conversations around ESG are still there, but I also feel like they've also been put a little bit to the back burner. So talk to us about
mhm.
this article. Why did you think this was so important? What should people know? And there's a word in this article that I had never heard before, which is materiality. Like, I don't even know what
Yeah.
that is. So talk to us about this one. Why is it important and what is materiality?
I love this article when I found it and read it because, ESG is getting a bad rap or it's misunderstood. I think, it's misunderstood. But at the end of the day, if you take the acronyms out of it, all of us can agree
Hmm.
that we want some of the actions that this represents. We want clean
Mhm.
water, we want clean air, we want, employees and people to be treated fairly, fair wages. We don't want any human rights violations. We
Yeah.
want corporate governance to be such that they're operating in the best interest of their shareholders and stakeholders. So if you think about it that way, then the acronyms aren't as important as what actions you take.
Mhm.
And so for me, this article gave everyone a really good understanding on how you could pivot away from focusing on the acronyms and focusing on the actions that they represent. And so that's why I love this article so much, is because it gave you some thoughts. And the gentleman that wrote it has spent 2 years studying this,
Mm.
talking to corporations, talking to people from both sides, whether you're for it or against it, whether you believe in climate change or you don't. He spent some time getting all perspectives and came away with making it more financial. We all know it's the right thing to do, but we're in a business environment, we're in
Mhm.
supply chain. We know we have to make it a financial win-win or at least a business case. Making sure that you have proper metrics in place and that you can report against those metrics. Those of in supply chain, we know whatever we do has to have a metric and we've got to be able to report against it. And we all probably have our own favorite dashboard in which we do that. And finally, it's just about taking care of your employees and they give some, that's what we want to do. You want to do business in countries that are not violating human rights violations. And we're all working that through our supplier code of conducts or whatever documents we use. So, let's continue to do that. And I think we'll all, honor the tenets of the acronyms of ESG without necessarily being wrapped around in it. And I know my title has ESG in it, and I'm actually thinking about changing it, but I'm not going to change, nor is my company going to change what we believe in and what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Um, if you give me another moment on this article, there is a group of corporations and organizations, there's almost 4,000 of them, that signed a document called We're All In. It was signed by us in 2021. It was when we rejoined the Paris Climate Accord, but it was our commitment that no matter what happens, we're going to continue down this path.
Hmm.
And my company is one of the signatories on it, but there's a number of other countries and companies and NGOs around the world that have signed off on this. So
Hmm.
I have a lot of hope. And after reading this article, it just gives us a path forward. And
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to continue this work.
Well, and thank you for sharing that because, like, that's a pretty powerful list, right? There's too many stories out there of, people having ESG on their website, but then it's greenwashing and who's actually telling the truth and who's not. And so a list like that is very powerful because you're holding each other accountable, but
Hmm.
it also means that you have purpose, right? And I
Yes.
think purpose is the foundation of us making visible, impactful change. And that's what this article does talk about, right? It talks about purpose, reporting, and something around constructive. I think that was for the board level and
Yeah.
the employees and things like that. And there are ways that each one of us, even if our organization is not doing anything, each one of us can contribute to this on a regular basis. And I don't just mean like in our houses or things like that, but there are the industries that we work in. And so what are the things that we need to be thinking about? I have some clips for an episode that's going to be coming out, talking about relabeling fashion as a way of circular supply chain and circular fashion, and it's fascinating. And there's so many ways that we can think about this. All right, so I know we need to get to our last article. I want to give a couple of minutes to this, but what we want to do is Maria and I want to encourage you to go and check this one out, because this is actually a
Mhm.
guide that's going to give you, it's going to explain what compliance means, the certification,
Yeah.
the strategies, the frameworks, the standards, all the things that are kind of overwhelming when you think about ESG just getting started, or maybe you're in the middle of it and you're having conversations internally and you have to go back to them with some solutions or frameworks or things, tangible action items that you're going to take to sort of move it forward. This is the guide for you. So, Maria, what did you think about this one?
I thought this was a great article. It was a great roadmap. It focused, it's so confusing, this space, because there's so many standards, there's so many certifications, there's so many reporting agencies. Europe has their own, they have a couple. The US, some states have different reporting and requirements. So this gives you a roadmap of some of the most used, most leveraged certifications and reporting standards that most of us use. GRI is one of them, SASB, those are all acronyms. But if you read the article, it will explain to you what those are. And if I was going to continue and start the work in this space, I would use this along with the previous article that we talked about. Use this as your roadmap, use the previous article to navigate the climate that we're in, to make sure that you can implement some of the things that you want to do.
Well, and also, I just want to point these out. I know that some of these are large companies like Microsoft,
Hmm.
Unilever, Salesforce. There is Natura and Co., which I believe is a smaller brand
Hmm.
in here, but they give real life examples of how they're utilizing some of the principles within this guide and what it has meant to them. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, a lot of these organizations have said, by 2030, this is what we're going to do. We
Hmm.
are headed into 2025. That is only 5 years away. There's a lot of work for us to do, not only as people and humans, professionals, supply chain professionals, because supply chain professionals supply chain is one of the biggest industries
Hmm.
that contributes to this, and we can make a really large impact by doing something small today. Maria, what do we want to leave the audience with? Is there an action or something that they could potentially take? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but an
Hmm.
action that they could take to maybe just get started and stay motivated in making that change?
Yeah, so just understand what I said earlier, that regardless of the acronyms, there are concepts and core values that each of our companies have around these topics. So no matter what, we're going to move forward, not only because we want to do it, we want to make a financial case for it, but our customers. Apple is one of our biggest customers, and they've required us to do certain things. So your customer is going to drive a lot of this as well.
Mhm.
And so I would just tell you to be encouraged, stay the course, be true to your core values of your company, service your customer by providing them with the information and partnering with them on some of these areas, because customers, if you think it's consumers want this. They want us to do these things.
Mhm.
So use the guides that we've given. I think they're really good. There's a lot of training out there. ISM offers training. There's some industry training by some of the sustainability companies. So train your team, decide what you want to do. Don't get too ambitious in the beginning. Understand what you can do as a company versus what policy has to have from the government, because you can't enact policy for the larger country, but you can't do what your company can do,
Such
and
great
and
advice.
stay true to what you can do. And
Such
to
great
your point,
advice.
to your
Mhm.
point, there's the company Asics running shoes. They have the carbon footprint printed inside of the shoe when you buy it, so
Hmm.
you know exactly what it is.
Huh.
Yeah, so every pair has its own carbon footprint stamped inside.
Oh, I had no idea. I'm going to go check that out. I also have a LinkedIn learning course, Fundamentals of Supply Chain
Okay.
Sustainability. So go and check that out as well. And Maria, it has been such a pleasure. Thank
It
you so
went
much
so
for
fast.
coming on the show. It is the fastest 30 minutes in supply chain, and we're just a minute over. But thank you so much to everybody who tuned in this week. Now, stay tuned next week because I have somebody from the Miracle on the Hudson. And yes, they worked in supply chain and they're coming to talk to us next week. So come back and join us next week. Maria, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.